Welcome, everyone, to another edition of CPAC Live. Today, we have two great guests, one of our board members and a very familiar face to all of you, KT McFarland, and Dan Rodimer, who's a great Republican candidate running for Congress in Nevada, who I had the good fortune of spending some time with on this recent Trump bus tour in Nevada. And there's great things going on overseas as well. As you all know, we were in 5 different countries last year doing CPACs, and because of Chinese corona, the Korean version, KCPAC, is going to have a virtual CPAC, and you can watch it. You can watch it right in from the comfort of your own home by just going to our website at conservative.org. It starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's tonight, Monday night. Tune in and watch KCPAC and hear what's going on in Korea. You know, everything in that area of the world is fraught with real trouble. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring KT McFarland back on to CPAC Live to give us an update on what's going on with China, what's going on with North Korea, what's going on with the threat to democracy in South Korea and this growing threat of socialism there, and obviously the growing threat of socialism in our own country, which just makes us all both angry and sad for America. We're really in the battle. It's America versus socialism. KT McFarland, former Deputy National Security Advisor to President Donald Trump and ACU board member. Thanks for joining us on CPAC Live.
It's a pleasure and an honor.
All right, I don't need to ask you a lot of questions. Help us. What is going on? Give us an update on what's going on with China, the president's approach to China, and specifically as CPAC is starting tonight, what's going on with South Korea?
Okay, I think that the important thing to remember and to recognize is that President Trump was the only really national leader, but certainly the only Republican as well as the only Democrat, who understood the challenge that's posed by China. I mean, he realized that we've been focused way too long on the Middle East and on other parts of the world, and we hadn't really seen the sleeping dragon come alive, which was China. And so he reoriented American foreign policy towards Asia, towards the Asia Pacific, repairing our relations with South Korea, with Japan, with other countries in the region, and focusing on standing up to China to try to get a better economic relationship, trade relationship, better tariff relationship, but a better, an equitable, reciprocal relationship with the Chinese. He used the Chinese U.S. trade war to get a phase 1 trade agreement, which was great. Everything was going along according to plan. And then the pandemic hit. And I think that was a wake-up call for everybody, but especially President Trump. The Chinese have had a plan for a long time to, by mid-century, replace the United States as the dominant world power, to replace liberal democracy with authoritarian governments. And they made no secret about that. But once the pandemic hit, which remember originated in China, once the pandemic hit, they knew they had a crisis on their hands and they hid it from the rest of the world. And while they were hiding it from the world, they were closing off travel within their own country and yet having people go from Wuhan, China, all over the world. So they were spreading the virus and using it really as a biological weapon. And they were doing it knowingly and deliberately. As they did it, they scooped up all of the medicines and all of the protective equipment while the rest of the world was really supposedly not being concerned about the pandemic. And they also now have been buying up American technology companies and resource companies around the world at fire sale prices. So President Trump, understanding that it was time to make a change, in the last several months has really reversed course. He's staked out a new China policy. He will announce it at the Republican convention, and it is to, number one, decouple from China. You know, during the middle of the pandemic, Matt, the Chinese were coming to us and saying, if you dare criticize us, we're going to cut off antibiotics to America, which are made in China. So President Trump understands we need to cut off the dependency on China for anything affecting our national security, including our health and security. So decouple from China. Number two, assemble with our allies who are also affected by China and China's wolf warrior diplomacy, and that's what they call it proudly, and to get them together with us the democracies, the free market economies of the world to together stand up to China. And then finally, and President Trump will announce that this week too at the convention, is to regain the high ground in technology with the 5G internet, the internet infrastructure of the future, investment in artificial intelligence and other technologies. So our policy is not what it was 6 months ago, not what it was a year ago. It is now understanding the threat the Chinese are posing, not wanting to stop Chinese development. You know, they can develop on their own. They're just no longer going to do it at our expense.
So we have a board member that often says America needs to stop being a sucker. We need to step up and face what the reality is. And it sounds like President Trump's going to give the world a real strong dose of the reality of what's going on with our relationship with China. But I have this question for you. We've been dealing with this for 7 months. We've been dealing with, obviously the world's been dealing with it, but even CPAC as an organization had to deal with really disgusting coverage of Chinese corona at our event. And of course, it's affected all of our lives since then. Yeah. Too many Americans have perished. Too many people across the globe have perished. Of course, the news media continues to report Chinese deaths as if the government is telling us the real numbers, which I just can't even imagine that actually passes for journalism. And then you have the second question. After these 7 months, KT McFarland, do you have any more information about whether or not this was kind of like biological warfare or just a mistake?
Doesn't matter, Matt, whether it was intentionally developed in a laboratory in Wuhan, China, or whether it came about by nature in the wet market in Wuhan, China. It doesn't matter. It's what the Chinese did once they recognized the potential that this was a pandemic. They knew within the first couple of weeks what the potential was, worldwide potential. So what did the Chinese do? Instead of sharing that information with the world, they said, oh, no problem here, no problem here. They suppressed the data. They disappeared the scientists and the doctors who were working on it. And they then told the world, including with the World Health Organization, oh, no problem here. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So they knew, once they knew they had a problem, they protected China, but they infected the rest of the world. So it doesn't really matter how it came about. They employed it as a biological weapon once they knew the pandemic, the ramifications of it. And they continue to not share information, like you said, that we can't really trust their numbers of the fatality. We don't really have, they have the experience. I mean, they've dealt with it longer than we have, but they're not sharing that data. Today, we don't even know what works, what doesn't work. How sick are people? Why are some people sick? Why are other people not sick? How come a cure works for some and it doesn't work for others? The Chinese probably know the answers to that, but they're not sharing it. In fact, if anything, they're trying to steal our research and development into a vaccine and into treatment for coronavirus.
Yeah, and that gets into this technological piece that President Trump is going to double down on. Now, what about North Korea? Has the virus, wreaked havoc there, or do we simply not know? And what's the status of the corrupt regime in North Korea?
You know, we don't know how the extent of the damage, but I'll just point out two really important and salient things that, you know, when you think about it, it lets you know that it's probably pretty bad there and getting worse. Number one, this is the fall. This is when the Chinese crops, the North Korean crops should come. This is always a period of time when North Korea is sort of fat and happy. Not that they're ever really fat and happy, but they're prosperous compared to where they are, let's say, for example, in the spring when the crops have had to get them through a tough winter. So they should be doing pretty well right now. But a week ago, the North Korean government said, all of you bourgeois people who are keeping dogs as pets, you need to turn your pet dogs over to the government because we need those for food sources. So what that's telling me is things are probably really bad. Number two, we haven't seen Kim Jong-un for months. President Trump and others have said they know what's happening with him. They know where he is. My guess is, based on having followed this guy and his father and his grandfather for decades, he's probably quite ill. He has probably passed over ruling of Korea, North Korea, to his younger sister. He's very close to her, the only member of the family that he's close to. And remember, this is a dynasty. This is not where they're going to vote for who's going to be the best leader in North Korea to succeed Kim Jong-un. It's going to be who's the best person to continue on the dynastic rule.
What do you think he's suffering from? Do we know?
I talked to some people who were around him when President Trump met with him in the North Korean South Korean border at Panmunjom. It's a demilitarized zone, and they said that Kim was having a really hard time just walking. He was short of breath. He was having a hard time. There was a little barrier that's maybe 2 feet tall at the most, and Kim had a hard time even stepping over that barrier. So my guess is he's probably, the rumors are that he has a heart condition, that he had a heart operation, that it was a botched operation. And this is a guy who's corpulent, overweight, never exercised, terrible food habits, and he's a chain smoker. So he's got all the ingredients for, somebody who's probably got a heart problem.
Well, it's good to know he has a heart. I was unaware.
Let's say it's a heart with a lot of other problems.
Yeah. But now with the start of Korea CPAC in South Korea, what's the latest on that fragile democracy?
When we met in Seoul, Korea a year ago.
I barely remember it.
A year ago, when the United States economy was booming, when we were talking about conservative values,
right,
and moving out and showing their promise in other parts of the world. They'd already been proven to be very successful in the United States. But when we were talking about it, it was almost like a theoretical, intellectual conversation. But now we've seen that there's nothing theoretical about it. The Chinese have probably interfered with Korea's spring election. They probably did skew the election results, not just with a disinformation campaign. They probably actually skewed the election results. And the Chinese are trying to assume that South Korea will just sort of be another vassal country, as they have been hundreds and thousands of years before. So the Chinese are making their moves. They're making their moves in South Korea. They're making their moves all around the South China Sea, the East China Sea. And I think it's so important that we have this conference, even if we're going to great lengths and it's virtual and this is not what anybody wants. It's really important, more important now than ever before, that we reaffirm our connection to Korea and our support of democracy and free market economies, because this pandemic has raged throughout the world. And it's important to understand that the reason it's raged throughout the world is an authoritarian government in China decided it wanted to take advantage of the world and replace the United States as the dominant world power, and then rewrite the rules of order throughout the world to suit themselves.
Communists, fascists, these, obviously the National Socialists, all these types of iterations of a totalitarian collectivist state, they always seem to come to power, obviously a putsch or a coup, but it's always a small minority that can grab hold of power. And then once they get that power, it's hard to stop them. When you look at your own country, KT, and you approach this whole public service from a foreign policy standpoint, you're not a political operative, although you've got some clearly political bloodlines in your family with your daughter's great win in Florida, and congratulations for Fields' win. I assume we'll all be getting invited to the to her swearing-in ceremony when that happens.
You better believe it.
but when you look at your own country and you see the kind of like the acceptance of this term socialism, it used to be a slur, now people embrace it. You have more and more Democrats saying, yeah, I'm a proud socialist. With your travels around the country and the people you talk to, what's your reaction? Are you kind of despondent about the future of your country, or do you think we can knock back this minority?
Despondent in the near term because it's miserable. Everybody's fighting with everybody. Optimistic in the long term, and here's why. I think the United States has a political revolution every 40 years or so. I think our founding fathers expected us to do that. I write about it at length in my book, Revolution. And I think that's what we're going through right now. And it happens at a time when the American population, which is constantly changing, evolving demographically, economically, technologically, geographically, demographically, and then a government, which, as you just pointed out, once they get in, they never want to give up the power. And so it's we, the people, have the right to say, wait, let's just get rid of those guys who are no longer serving our needs and get in new people. But it doesn't happen overnight. It happens over a number of years. The Republican Party had its civil war in 2016. It rejected the traditional Republican establishment for a whole lot of reasons, economic, China, among others, but particularly because it stopped caring about a big slice of American society, the working class, the lower middle class, the middle class. The Democrats are having their civil war now. And is it nice Joe Biden, establishment Democrat, or is it the AOCs, the socialists, the people who go right out and say, we want to come to your door and confiscate your guns. We want to make sure that nobody can make more than X amount of dollars per year. We're going to confiscate that too. It's the people who have a very different vision of America. Now, I think in the end, the American people are pretty smart, and that we go to the polls, we elect the people we want, we expect Washington to obey. And if they don't, if the bureaucracy tries to fight against the people, I think we have another election, we do it again. I think that's where we are today. So where it ends up, I have a lot of confidence in the American people. I don't know how this is going to get fixed. I can just tell you that in 1776, in the Jacksonian Revolution in 1820, after the Civil War in 1860, after the Industrial Revolution with Teddy Roosevelt in 1900, after the Great Depression in the 1940s, and again with Reagan and the Reagan Revolution, we go through these periods. This is one of the worst of them, one of the most acrimonious, but we always find our way out. Why? Because our founding fathers understood that liberty and freedom of choice and self-governance were essential to Americans. And so, yeah, I think we find our way out. I think it's going to be pretty bloody before we do. But in the end, I think Americans will prevail.
Oh, yeah. I got locked out of my Twitter account, not because Twitter did anything to me. I think it's my own incompetence. And I felt like I could breathe because I didn't have to read all that crap that's out there. But let me ask you this question, KT. There was a list of former foreign policy officials that put a letter out recently.
Yeah.
And the other day, and I love reading through these lists of people. These are people that try to act like they're Republicans who are now voting for Biden. And what people don't know, the story behind these letters is oftentimes the foreign policy establishment and career foreign service officers take jobs in Republican administrations. It doesn't mean they're Republicans at all. Doesn't even necessarily mean they support the policies of that Republican president. But they go on with this veneer into the future as if they were a Bush appointee who now is supporting Joe Biden. But when you really look at the story, it's different from that. When you read these letters and the media's hyping of the fact that, everybody who's anybody in foreign policy is somehow rejecting Trump's policies, there's no question, like you said, the curtain has torn. There's been a lot of acrimony. There's a split. But there's plenty of responsible voices like yourself who are rooting President Trump on.
First of all, those individuals, you're right. I mean, the Republicans, maybe, who knows? But what we're going through now is a complete realignment politically in the country, right? The lower middle class, the working class, the Democrats used to own them, right? But they're not anymore. They're now Trump Republicans. In the minority groups, in the inner cities, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, other groups, the Democrats for 40 years gave them everything, but they never gave them what they needed: good schools and a job. Trump gave him that. He's now making inroads into those communities. Now, the people who have decided to jump ship with the Republicans and are now Biden Democrats, well, those are the people who partially are ticked off because President Trump didn't hire them for jobs.
That's
and
right.
There are also people who were never really Republicans or conservatives in the first place. They were just opportunists. So I think they're looking at their moment of opportunity. So President Trump has rejiggered the political landscape, certainly for the Republican Party. And that's a sign of a transitional period. That's a sign of a political revolution. As for who they are and what their policies were, hey, come on. These are the guys that helped, men and women who helped get us into 2 wars in the Middle East that we lost. They spent American blood and treasure. With those $5 trillion, we could have rebuilt American infrastructure. We could have fixed our schools. We could have fixed our energy. We could have done a lot. But what did we do? We frittered it away on wars in places to prop up leaders who didn't like us in countries that didn't matter. So those are the people. I don't think that it's a badge of disgrace that they abandoned Trump, I think is a badge of honor. In fact, I told that to President Trump one time. I said, you know, all those people who aren't supporting you, the neocons who wanted the forever wars, if they don't endorse you, great, because they haven't done anything right in decades. They missed the whole rise of China, and they got us focused on losing wars in the Middle East in places that don't count. Now, what has President Trump done in the Middle East? A week ago, he announced a historic, I mean, for the ages, peace agreement between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. Now, what has he also done? Look at what he's done to China, standing up to China. Look what he's done to NATO. He said to the NATO guys, look, you're free riders. Start paying your own way. We can't afford to underwrite your security and your economies. It's time for you to ante up with a little bit of contribution of your own. And these all have been successful all across the board. So as far as those 75 guys, my advice, good riddance.
I like it when KT McFarland is revved up. And for all of our viewers out there, I just want to remind you, I'd love to have a whole show on the polls. And I've been reading through a lot of these polls, including this most recent Wall Street Journal poll that shows the president down to Biden nationwide by 9 percentage points. But what's interesting about that is ask yourself the political courage to stand up against your president when you think he's going to lose. These letters always come out when all the smart people in D.C. look at bad polls and say, oh my God, Trump is going to lose. I'll be with Biden, and that'll help me get a job in the Biden administration. So just remember that, folks. It doesn't take courage to pick the side that you think is going to win. And we're going to do a whole show on these polls because actually, if you go into these states, I was just in Nevada. I was just in Wisconsin. I feel much more optimistic. And I think KT McFarland, you're going to join us on the road?
You bet. I mean, I think this is really, everybody says that every election is important. This one actually is the difference. Are we going to be a socialist nation run by a bunch of Washington bureaucrats and woke progressives, or are we going to be a nation of the people? I'm all for the people, and I'll go at every campaign stop. I want to make the case. I especially want to make it to women, because especially to suburban women. I'm a suburban woman. I'm a suburban housewife, among other things. And if we go down the road that's being proposed by Joe Biden and the woke and the progressive Democrats, America will never again be able to give our children and our grandchildren the life that we've inherited. So you bet I'm ready to fight.
And where do we get your book, Revolution?
You just get it anywhere you can. You can download it on Kindle. You can go to Amazon, bookstores everywhere. You can download it. You can buy it. You can buy an autographed copy of it. In fact, if you like the sound of my voice, Matt, you can even get the audiobook, and I will be talking in your ear for 10 hours. So what a treat. But please do buy it, because it explains the rise of Trump. It talks about why, it puts some real meat on the bones of Trump's sort of, bumper sticker phrases, and why there's a reason that we have to stand up to China, why it's important to rebuild defenses, why it's essential to fix the economy. And then finally, it's what you and I just talked about. I think we're going through a miserable time. Nobody likes this. We're all sick to our stomachs. None of us can sleep. It's not just the pandemic, it's the divisiveness in America. But this is how we reinvent ourselves. Every American has the opportunity to reinvent himself as a person, as an individual, and the nation reinvents ourselves. And that's American. That's what makes us exceptional. Other countries do a lot of great things. We're exceptional because America reinvents itself. And that's the creative destruction we're going through now.
I love it. KT McFarland, thank you so much for all you do for the American Conservative Union. And we're going to be right back with Big Dan Rodimer in just a minute.
China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man. They can't even figure out how to deal with the fact that they have this great division between the China Sea and the mountains in the west. They can't figure out how they're going to deal with the corruption that exists within the system. They're not bad folks, but guess what? They're not competition for us. But here's where we are. We're in a situation where right now we have not only the strongest military in the world, we have led not by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. That's why the rest of the world has it referred to us. Not a joke.
You're jamming.
You ready, Matt?
You're jamming. Hey, are you interviewing me or am I interviewing you? I mean, we can do this anyway.
I was just fired up. I had to put the Eye on Tiger on just to get everybody out there fired up, because this is the most important election of our lifetime right now, Matt.
All right, so you guys probably already figured out who this is, but this is Big Dan Rodimer, who's a great friend of Rick Harrison, one of our CPAC great speakers and a great conservative out there in Vegas. And you're running for Congress. Where did you get that idea and how's it going?
Matt, it is going incredible out here. We are in a swing state, in a swing district, running against Socialist Susie Lee, who's a freshman incumbent that is just scandal plagued. I don't like to call, I probably shouldn't call her Socialist Susie Lee. I should just call her Scammy Susie Lee. But the fact is this is a seat we know we can take back. We know we can take it back. We know we can win. I talked to the president about 2 weeks ago with Leader Kevin McCarthy. He put me on speakerphone. Leader Kevin McCarthy said, President Trump, the fact of the matter is if Big Dan Rodimer wins CD3, you take Nevada. And if Big Dan Rodimer loses CD3, we lose Nevada. So this is a very, very vital state to take back. And we will do it because people are fired up. They are excited. The independents, the moderate Democrats, the Republicans, they're going to come out because this is a fight unlike we've ever had. And we got to win this. And we have to. Let me ask you this, Matt. Are you fired up about taking back the House?
I am fired up about taking back the House. And one of the reasons I'm fired up about it is because I spent time with you in your district last week. And I also think that the national media, they believe that Nancy Pelosi has no threat, that the House majority is secure. They think Donald Trump is going to lose. They think Nevada is going blue. And after spending time in Nevada, I don't think they're right.
Matt, they're not right. They're not right. I got into this race, back in August. You came in, you endorsed me early. I think it was maybe September, October. You came in, we got the ACU endorsement. We were down. We were down by 5 points going into the primary. All mail-in ballot. People are like, oh my gosh, it's all mail-in ballot. But you believed in me. And what happened? We came in down 5 points. I had no money left, so I couldn't put it into TV. Don Jr. was coming out. Kevin McCarthy was coming out. They were all coming out to do fundraisers. We didn't have any money left. So what did I do? I called up 50 volunteers. And in 5 weeks, we called 92,000.
Wow.
And we won. We took it 6-way primary. We won by 50%. Took it by 23 points. And people are fired up. These are folks that never voted before. They got a mail-in ballot that it said, hey, you know what? I've never really voted in a primary before, but we're going to come out now because they know how important this race is.
Yeah, what I learned by being in Nevada is that some of the institutional strengths that the Democrats have, they might not have this cycle. And I saw something else, and you were with us on this Trump bus, but we would do these events, and cops were either there, policemen were either there, or they were just checking out to make sure maybe we were following all your ridiculous governor's rules or whatever. And what I noticed in each and every stop is law enforcement would come over to the Trump bus and take photos. I think I know how cops are voting this time. What do you think?
Hey, last week I have my interview with the police association, the unions, for the endorsement. We've never got an endorsement in Congressional District 3 for a Republican. They called me up. I said, look, guys, we may not agree on everything, but the fact of the matter is at the end of the day, you guys endorse me or not, I will be your biggest supporter. And sure enough, we got the endorsement. And the thing is here in our district, it's not only our district, not only our state, it's across the country. People are scared. I have 5 kids, Matt. We have 1 on the way. Sarah's pregnant, and in 4 weeks, we're going to bring a baby into this world. And these are scary, scary times.
Yeah.
We got a pandemic. We got people out there rioting, burning down buildings, trying to burn down churches, shooting police officers. We had a police officer shot in the head here. This is a time where people want security. They want to feel safe. They want to be able to go out, and if they call, please come. They want more police officers, not less police officers. And, my district, we have a lot of suburbs. And they want somebody who's going to fight to protect them. And that's what I'm going to do.
Let me ask you this question. You call her Socialist Susie Lee, scandal-plagued Susie Lee. She has a 7% score with the American Conservative Union, which basically means she never votes right. One of the issues we cared a lot about and still do is that scar on history, the impeachment vote in the House. Is that something that voters care about, how the president's been treated?
Absolutely. President Trump won our district by 1.5 points in 2016. Okay. When she came in, what was her first vote? To make Nancy Pelosi Speaker of the House. What did she vote on next? To impeach the president. It fired people up, and they weren't happy about it. She got booed out of her last 2 town halls. Right. This is a district where folks want President Trump. They want somebody that will come in there. She came in as a moderate. She said, hey, I'm a moderate. I'm going to work with the president. She voted 98% with AOC, the radical left-wing, socialists. And that's not who they want running our state. They don't want Nancy Pelosi running our state. They want real leaders.
Yeah, 98% with Nancy Pelosi. We all know what that means. And I'm assuming that the great voters in Nevada and in your congressional district, I bet one of the top issues for them is just getting this economy back humming, getting themselves back into the workplace. Is that an issue that you're hearing from voters of like premier importance?
Absolutely. Right now, Las Vegas, we got hit the hardest in the last recession. We have 25% unemployment right now. People are leaving the state.
Right.
We need to bring back jobs, from China, from all over. Bring it back here. God forbid we have another pandemic someday, Matt. I want to make sure we have ventilators here, that we're building them here, that we're making our medicines here. And that's what we want here in Nevada. I mean, we're getting hit hard. We're the entertainment capital of the U.S. And people are leaving. So how are we going to do it? We need good job training. We need to get people back to work, and we need to get money in their pockets. And I got fired up last week. I wasn't going to do this. I got so fired up, and I try to stay away from the WWE promos, being a former pro wrestler. But I grabbed my phone last week and I pulled it out. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning. And I did it. I pulled it out. I said, I usually don't do this WWE gimmick, Susie Lee, but I'm going to call you out because we have 25% unemployment. And where are you? You're hiding at home on vacation when all these people need money in their pocket. And President Trump had to come out and do an executive order to get folks $400. And where was she? She's not around for the people, Matt. She's not.
Right.
We need somebody that will go to DC and protect our district, our state, our country.
Now, you're not a traditional politician, obviously. Is that seen, are people tired of politicians and they want to try people like you just said? You come from the world of wrestling. You're obviously a businessman. Is that what people want now? They want to try something new?
Absolutely. I am not a politician. President Trump is not a politician. No, I was a former WWE wrestler. I'll be honest with you, Matt, I was the worst wrestler in the WWE. I was absolutely horrible. But I was real good on the microphone. And when I went to law school, when I went to Ave Maria, I wasn't the best student. I was a B student. But I was great at debating. And right now, when I came on, I sat down with Leader Kevin McCarthy. He said, Big Dan, we need somebody different. We need somebody who's relatable. We need somebody who could read and write a bill. We need somebody who's good on the mic, and we need somebody who's Trump-like. And that's what folks want, relatability. I was with Ted Cruz for the last couple of days, and he told me, he said, Dan, you got backbone. You got backbone. And some of the candidates out there, they're not politicians. Wesley Hunt, Burgess Owens, Madison, Hawthorne, these are people that are coming in that are patriots. They love their country. We all have, it's funny because you line all of us up, out there and we do our speeches and everybody has a different style of speaking, but we still get our message across. And that's what America wants. That's what America needs right now. Hey, they may have their AOC of the left, but hey, we got our team over on the right that is not afraid to stand up, stand tall, and fight for America.
Okay, so how can people help you in this important effort? Because as your congressional district goes, right, what Leader McCarthy is saying, that could determine whether President Trump wins Nevada. Winning Nevada can determine whether or not he gets 4 more years, and even equally important, whether or not Nancy Pelosi gets to hold on to that big gavel and wear that fancy pin she likes to wear as the Speaker of the House. How can people help you?
Hey, we need as many volunteers as we can get. We need people knocking on doors. And it's 115 degrees outside right now out here in Nevada. It's hot. But we got volunteers going out there every day. We got folks, volunteering to make calls every day. Money, hey, everybody on there, hey, if you could go to danrodimer.com and donate $17.76 today, I would love it, and I'd appreciate it. Because she has more money than me. There's no doubt about it. The DCCC said she is the most vulnerable incumbent in the country. She's barely breaking a 40% approval rate. I mean, that's insane. So this is a seat we know we can take back. We're tied up right now, and it's going to take money. We're going to have to get out there. We're going to have to get the message out there. We got to get the name ID out there more, and that's how we win.
Do you think that are you seeing a lot of registered Democrats or people that normally vote Democrat rethinking the Republican Party and candidates like yourself? Do you think all the violence against churches, statues, the indictment of America and George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, is it making kind of just like normal, logical Democrats rethink things?
Moderate Democrats, absolutely. The moderate Democrats are, they're business owners. I'm a business owner. I own a small business. I understand how hard it is to make payroll, with regulations and taxes. And they're seeing that now. They're understanding when all of a sudden all of our restaurants are shutting down. 60% of them will never reopen. And folks relate to me. When I came on, Matt, I'll tell you this quick story. When I came on, Matt, I went to all the leaders in the Republican Party. I went to Dean Heller, I went to Adam Laxalt, I went to Joe Heck, I went to Ensign, I went to all of them. And I asked them for advice. And I said, what would you guys do differently if you could do it again? And Wes Duncan came to me and he said, Big D, I won your district by 8,000 votes. I said, 8,000, wow. He was running for Attorney General. He goes, I didn't win, but I won your district. I said, what did you do differently? He says, Dan, I went to 3 to 4 different houses of worship every single weekend. Yeah. And it didn't matter if they were Republican or Democrat. It didn't matter if they were Baptist, Catholic, Lutheran. It didn't matter what it was. I'd go in, and people don't fight with you in the house of God. So I went into a church. I went into a Latino Hispanic Baptist church, Matt. I walked in. The pastor came up to me. He goes, Big Dan, I love you, but I'm a Democrat. But I'm going to vote for you. I said, all right. He goes, but just so you know, everybody in this church, they are all Democrats. Every single one of them. And I said, well, I don't have anything to lose then. So I walked in, stood in front of everybody, raised my arms out wide and said, my name's Dan Rodimer, I'm running for Congress. And everybody put their head down. And I was like, shit, I got to try a different angle here. Sorry. And then I said, raised my arms back out wide. I said, I'm also a former WWE pro wrestler. And everybody put their head up. And I said, look, everybody, and I don't know this area. I don't know your community. I drive through it. But if you can tell me your 3 major issues, and don't ask me to fix DACA and Dreamers, tell me the 3 major issues you have here right now. And I promise everybody in here, I'll bust my ass for you. And I'll come back in 3 months after I'm elected, and I'll tell you if I'm succeeding or failing. And I'll tell you why. The next thing you know, everybody started shaking their head. And they all came up to me afterwards. They all shook my hand. They all said they were going to vote for me. Fact is, man, I don't know if they're all going to vote for me. But if we get 10 of those votes, that's 10 more votes we've never gotten. And when Leader McCarthy sat me down, he looked me in the eye. He said, Big Dan, when you're the next congressman, I want you to be the face of Fox News. I said, Kevin, I don't want to be the face of Fox News. I want to be the face of CNN and MSNBC. Because Republicans don't watch CNN and Democrats don't watch Fox. The fact is a lot of folks up there, they don't have the backbone. I was going to say something else, but I'll say backbone. That's what Ted Cruz told me the other day. But that's how we convey the message across to the other side. And even if I get 2% of the people on CNN or MSNBC to agree with me, even though they're trashing me, That's how we win. Not just now, but in the future.
Yeah, we got to take our beliefs and our love of our country. We got to take it everywhere. We got to talk to everyone. And I do think you're right. I think people of faith are going to play a very important role in this election. And I think what's interesting is I think the Catholic vote could very well determine who the next president is. Obviously, Joe Biden fashions himself as a member of a parish, and he calls himself Catholic, and he's going to fight hard for those votes. And if he's successful, I think that could determine the outcome of the election. I think the other really important group, you talked about Hispanics, but I think African Americans are going to be a very important swing constituency. Obviously, picking Kamala Harris was done partly to satisfy this pledge that he'd put a woman of color on the ticket. And we're going to ask, this is going to be a very interesting question around this country. Is it the policies that matter, the policies that help these communities so much under President Trump, or are there other dynamics that are more important? Do you think I'm right about the African-American vote and the Catholic vote, that they could determine who the next president is?
Absolutely. Catholic vote is going to be huge. And in regards to Joe Biden, I believe he's banned from taking communion. I heard that they wouldn't give it.
And it's true.
And the reason being is because he has no problem with killing babies.
Yeah.
You know, he is a pro-choice guy, you know, and that's not what people want, especially the Catholics.
That's right.
We're pro-life, you know, and I see that huge in my district, in my state. And in regards to the African-American vote, you know, it's going to, you know, everybody across the board, I don't care if you're Latino, African-American, Asian, white, everybody wants safety and security right now.
That's right.
And these are the issues that are going to come through continuously until election. And these are the things that I'm going to continuously say over and over and over and over and over again to folks in my district. Look, you may not agree with everything that I stand for, but I guarantee, I talked to some folks the other day, and this woman came up to me and she goes, "What do you think about defunding Planned Parenthood?" And I said, "Well, I'm the poster boy for pro-life. I have 5 kids. I got one on the way." And she's, well, so do you agree with the funding Planned Parenthood? I said, "Yeah." And I said, "But you just agreed with me 5 minutes ago about funding the police officers, right? Healthcare, you agreed with me on, making sure everybody has an option, right? And school choice, that was the other one. You know, I said, you agreed with me on all 3 of those things, but you don't agree with me on this one. So who are you going to vote for?" And she started shaking her head and smiling. She goes, "I'm going to vote for you, Big Dan." So
that's all.
But that's what it comes down to, Matt. You don't have to agree with everything, but right now it's, you know, simple solutions to major issues. You know, right now we have this whole mail-in ballot. You know, it's crazy out here. I'm not worried about it because, you know, 40% of the culinary unions are gone. They had to leave the state because Governor Sisolak, and that's what I don't understand. People don't comprehend this. Governor Sisolak is shutting down our state. He's suppressing us, and people have to leave over it. You would think it would, you know, resonate that, hey, we have to leave the state. This governor probably isn't that good. Or our congresswoman here, Susie Lee, for Horsford, are not really helping us.
That's right.
And they're seeing it. They're seeing it, Matt.
Well, let me tell you, when I realized we went to church and I saw that there's this limit of 50 people in a church, no matter how big the church is, I saw the insanity of socialism. And but one of the greatest things is I got to meet your wonderful wife. I got to meet 2 of your kids. I got to talk to people in your district who are very proud that you're running for Congress. We're glad that you're a man of courage because we're going to need that out here. You got to, now don't choke. Okay, you're in the red zone. You got to win this thing, and you got to give Kevin McCarthy that gavel, okay?
Hey, we're going to fight, and we're going to fight. And Matt, I always like to end it like this. I am going to fight for your children. I'm going to fight for your small businesses. I'm going to fight for the veterans. And if need be, I will take a folding chair right to the establishment. God bless President Trump. God bless the matter? God bless America, Matt.
Big Dan Rodimer, thank you for being with us. Thank you for having the courage to run for office. Everybody help this guy out. We need to send him to Congress, and we need to sneak up on Nancy Pelosi and take that gavel out of her hands. We appreciate everybody joining us on CPAC Live for a really great show, really interesting show. And we're going to be with you again on Wednesday. Talk to you soon.